Yeah, joining me to chat through what was a seriously entertaining League Two weekend, which I feel like we're saying every week right now, but very much on merit, 40 goals across the 12 games again, is Harrogate Town goalkeeper James Belshaw. So good to have you on, James.
Yeah, no, Ali, thanks for having me. Yeah, we picked a good weekend to go through this, particularly with the Harrogate result, I think. So yeah, delighted to be on.
You travelled down to the previously invincible Gillingham, and you absolutely vinced them by a 0-0. A really nicely taken early goal from Stephen Duke McKenna. Strong start to the season continues. And it looked to me like there was an expected amount of pressure and some territory and balls into the box from Gills after that. But just the two saves that you had to make in this game. So either good defending in front of you to make it hard for them, maybe some wayward shooting as well, but it must be an incredibly satisfying result and the first team in the league this season to beat Gillingham.
Yeah, really satisfying. We knew that going into it would be a really tough challenge. They're unbeaten in 6 months, 21 games is an incredible record, and they're a really good side. I mean, throughout the week we focused on their threats, and their big threats are the two fullbacks, Hutton and Clark, getting forward trying to stop crosses, and then they've got Andrews in there who they target from a lot of the set pieces, and Nevitt as well. Lots of threats in behind with Dak and Williams. They've got a really strong squad. But the first half we went there with kind of a mentality that we wanted to play. We wanted to try and play through their press, so to try and draw them out. And I think first half we were probably good value. They had a couple of chances, I had a couple of saves to make in the first half, but second half you expect that onslaught when you defend in the Raynham end and they're trying to, so cliche, suck the ball into the net. But no, second half we stood up to task. They put a load of balls into the box. We defended well. You need a bit of luck. There's a couple of headers that kind of flashed past the post. But yeah, overall a really sort of pleasing 1-0 away day performance.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Duke McKenna we've chatted about quite a bit on the pod this season, and in particular I'll go back to the start of last season where I remember saying really looking forward to seeing how Duke McKenna does at Harrogate. I think this could be a really smart pickup based on the flashes that he showed at Sutton at the back end of the season before in their relegation campaign. And then he ended up out on loan last season and didn't make a big impact on the Harrogate first team in his first season there. And I love stuff like that. When in the second season, he's come back. He's now been a standout player for you guys this season. And that's been an interesting journey for him. Tell me about Stephen Duke McKenna.
Yeah, so similar to you, when we signed him at the start of last season, there was kind of a bit of optimism around the signing, and we thought he's going to come in and contribute and do a lot. But for one reason or another, it sort of didn't really work out for Dukey the first half of last season. Ended up going out on loan, like you said, to Scotland. And I think last season, the difference between this season and last season is I think going forward, we're a lot stronger this year. We're creating a lot more chances in the way that we play, which is probably suiting him a little bit more. And he came back in pre-season and just really hit the ground running. Just one of those lads in training, and even in games you'll see where it's just give me the ball. Sometimes you need one ball for him and one ball for the rest of the team. He's that kind of player. But no, he scored on the opening day against Bristol Rovers, scored a few important goals for us, and then really nice, well-taken goal, cutting in onto his left foot yesterday. But yeah, he's been a real bright spot for us and a real positive, and almost seems like a new signing because we didn't have him at the back end of last season. He sort of come in and feels rejuvenised and yeah, ready to go. And yeah, it's been a good couple of weeks for us. We had a tough spell. We'd lost 4 on the spin in the league after a relatively positive start. But seem to have found our feet the last couple of games, and yeah, like I said, really pleasing result yesterday.
The early season league tables are always, they are just yet to kind of shake out and spread out a bit. But the current League Two table is pretty nuts because you're 16th at the moment, but you're on 14 points from 10 games, and a 1.4 PPG is like a 65-point season, which would be fantastic and would generally have you pretty close to the playoff places if you can continue that. But obviously, the points have been so spread out around the league. There's this huge chunk of teams between, basically from Walsall at the top to you guys in 16th. There's only 8 points, and then 8 points beneath you takes you right the way down towards the very bottom. So it's kind of, I wonder how you guys look at your first 10 games of the season, because the league position might be broadly similar to where Harrogate have finished the last few seasons. I think since you joined the league, won promotion, you finished between 13th and 19th every season, I think. But I don't know. For me, there's plenty of reason for positivity based on what you've done so far.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like we're warranted to be 16th in the league. And after the game, when you get in yesterday and you have a quick look at your phone and you think we were 16th at the start of the day, and you think, well, hang on, we've just gone and beat the league leaders, and we're still 16th afterwards. But like I said, there's 3 points between Bristol Rovers in 7th and us in 16th, so it's an extremely tight league. And yeah, for us, there is optimism, because at the start of the season, we're always the bookies' favourite to go down. I always listen to your preview, seeing where you've got us, and see if you've got us in the bottom two. But no, we are one of those teams. We have one of the smaller budgets in the league. We recognise what we're about, but we back ourselves. We've got some really good players, and I think a lot of away fans or opposition, after playing against us, will think, no, you know what, they're actually not a bad side, and we just want to kind of quietly go about our business. And like I said, a result yesterday makes people take notice, mainly because of obviously the unbeaten streak of Gills. But yeah, we've got some really good players. It's a really good football club. The manager's obviously been there 16 years. There's 4 or 5 of us that have played over 250 games for the club, so you've got that core together. And yeah, in answer to your question, we feel better than 16th. So yeah, we've got some tough games coming up. We've got Crewe next Monday night on Sky. So yeah, that'll be a tough one after their win yesterday.
Nice. Possibly a bit more. There's a couple more things I'd love to just chat about with Harrogate Town more general, maybe towards the end of the show. But let's whiz through some of the results from the weekend. Most eye-catching is Grimsby 7, Cheltenham 1. Now, this game had Cheltenham take the lead, and it's sort of that cliche, like the worst thing they could have done was sort of poke the bear, I guess. And it was very much against the run of play as well. Isaac Hutchinson sort of stabbing in after some good work from Archer down the left. And then Grimsby came on strong. Grimsby came on strong. No surprise, really. Not only getting goals back, but also either side of half-time, red cards for Pell, 2 yellows, not much to argue with. 2 yellows for Angol as well, both for the exact same infringement, which was kind of the use of forearm or elbow when challenging for a high ball. Don't know about you, I found it pretty hard to tell, and often do with these, like, what warrants a yellow card and what warrants just a foul with stuff like that, because there is so much grappling and limbs flailing everywhere. But Angol goes as well. Grimsby, not a team you want to be playing with 10 or even 9 men, because they attack with so many numbers, quality, vertically and horizontally across the pitch. And the scoreline says it all, 7-1 Grimsby. And I don't know if you saw the goals, I'm sure you did, basically just queuing up to score at the end, it felt like.
Yeah, I think, the first 2 goals were unbelievable. Walker puts 2 in the top corner within the space of 3 minutes. And we played Grimsby's second game of the season, and they're probably the best side I've seen this season that we've played against. And we were 3-1 up and going into the last sort of 10 minutes, and they scored 2 late on. But Kieran Green, incredible player in the middle of the park. McEachran in there. They've got Cabia up front. I know his penalty record's not great, but his goal scoring record, I think he's scored 3 in his last 5 and proved a really shrewd signing from Truro. Charles Vernon's been excellent. Scored an identical goal yesterday that he did against Man United. But yeah, look, Cheltenham have... Yeah, it's been a tough start to the season for Cheltenham. Obviously, Michael Flynn's gone. And yeah, go 1-0 up against a very good Grimsby side. But yeah, for me, I think Grimsby are one of the better sides I've seen this season. And I'd expect them to be definitely in the playoffs and possibly pushing that top 3, because I think Dave Artell's got them playing a really good brand of football.
Yeah, I mean, the cup exploits as well, not just that United game, but they're in the last 16 now. They've got home game against Brentford, which is really exciting. And they've been a club that have done really well in cup competitions the last few years as well, with a great FA Cup run a few years ago. So just a club with great energy and positivity at the moment on and off the pitch. I mean, they've got a record this season of 5 wins, 3 draws and 2 defeats. I mean, I'm sure they would say that some of the draws they'd have felt like they probably had the better chances or more chances on balance of play, potentially including their game against you. But the 2 defeats both came after they won in midweek in the Carabao Cup, including that United game, which again, isn't somewhat excusable, or at least, notable context, I think. For Cheltenham, the reports are that Steve Cotterill will be coming back to the club. This is a manager, James, that you've probably played against Cotterill teams. He's managed a lot of teams at this level and had a lot of success in sort of success in different ways, whether it's promotion with Bristol City, who, you know, admire him as one of their best modern managers, to keeping Shrews in League One for a long time, and with Forest Green, his last club in the National League, you know, ultra competitive team who got close to promotion, but for whatever reason sort of parted company with him over the summer. When you see a manager like that coming into the league with a team down at the bottom and you know, a rival team in the league of you guys, what does that make you feel?
Yeah, I'd expect it if he is appointed. I'd expect him to have a huge impact. He took my club, Notts County, out of League Two, got Tottenham promoted to League One back in late 2000 and I think 2009. I think we got promoted then. But no, did really well at Forest Green. I spent some time on loan at Forest Green a couple of years ago, so I know a few of the staff there, and they all spoke really highly of him. They've obviously gone down the Robbie Savage route this year and doing really well. But no, I think an experienced manager is probably what Cheltenham need going into the position that they're in, and going forward for the rest of the season. But I would back him to turn it around. And yeah, for us, like you say, it's a rival team in the league, and yeah, you'd expect them to start picking up points. We don't play them till mid-December, so hopefully that bounce is kind of nullified by them by the time we play them.
Yeah, sure. Walsall are top of the league. They beat Aki 3-1. And actually, you watch the highlights, you look at the way the game panned out. Aki were pretty good for it at 0-0 and put a lot of pressure on Walsall. This wasn't one of those games where Walsall, you know, completely shut out the opposition. But I think in the 3 goals they scored, it's like a perfect reflection of this Walsall side. You've got a header from a set piece. This time it was Aidan Flint, but it could be Burke, it could be almost anyone in their team. They seem so dangerous from those situations and have done for the last 18 months. Then Daniel Kanu just sort of makes something happen, latches onto a ball, left-hand side of the box, shot which deflected, loops over the keeper, and Presley sort of stabs in. But Kanu has looked really sharp since joining on loan from Charlton. Basically a massive goal threat in every game he's played so far, which bodes really, really well. And then Uncle Albert Adoma scoring on the break, whipping out the Zimmer frame celebration. So the last few weeks, and you have to say the whole start to the season in the context of last season, have really gone very well for Sadler and Walsall. And I just wonder what it's like for you guys when you're chatting about the rest of the league on the bus home after games or in the dressing room. You know, Walsall have been one of the main characters on this pod for the last 18 months because of their early results last season, the tail off, sticking with Sadler, all that entailed. A really fascinating club at the moment and going very, very well.
Yeah, I think you look at the second half of last season and draw conclusions from that. Look, they lost Nathan Lowe, who was probably the best player in the league over the first 6 months of last season, and that kind of form towards the end of last season could have gone one or two ways. I'm really, really pleased that the hierarchy chose to stick with Matt Sadler. Seems like a really good guy. I know a few of the boys there, and every time you speak to them, they always speak very highly of him. And this season, they added Aidan Flint. You had that experience at the back. Albert Adoma, obviously, the last couple of games has come up with late goals, and they're a really, really strong side. Barrett as the wing back, very, very good player. And I think for me, we'd expected them, when you chat and you say, oh, they're going to be up there again this season. I think it's one of those clubs that seems like they'll learn from last season and what kind of the lessons that they take from the back end and not quite getting over the line in that playoff final against Dons. But yeah, look, really, really strong side, really good manager, and yeah, spent some time there in my youth days. So yeah, a club that I kind of always keep an eye out for. But yeah, they've started really well, and I think I had this in my notes that Aki put up a really good fight. Stats suggest that maybe they could have done enough to nick something from this game, but shows a sign of a good side that Walsall are getting over the line. And I don't think Aki had lost at home before in the league before yesterday. So really, really good result for Walsall, and yeah, going great guns.
Yes, spring 2009 is when you were on the bench a few times for Walsall. Am I right in saying you didn't come on and play in a league game, and you must have been pretty young then?
Yeah, I was. So I was in the youth team at Walsall, but it was kind of a bit different in the sense that I stayed at sixth form to do my A-levels and kind of split that with playing for Walsall. I was picked up in what had been my second year scholar, so when I was in upper sixth, and sat on the bench 3 times in League One. No, a few more actually, a few times in League One. Never got on.
A team with Troy Deeney in, among others.
Yeah. Yes, and then obviously I linked back up with Troy at Forest Green. Great guys, Troy. But yeah, really, really good club. Enjoyed my time there.
And instead of sticking it out, you went to the world famous Duke University, which I don't think there's many EFL players that can say the same. What was that decision all about, James? Because it is an unusual route that you took at the start of your career. Obviously, you sit here with not only over 250 games for Harrogate, but many others across League Two and League One and National League as well. But you weren't in a rush, put it that way, to start your professional football career.
No, I was at Notts County as a kid, went through the academy there. They ended up shutting down their academy when I was 15 for funding reasons, and I kind of just dropped into just sort of playing local men's football, and ended up getting scouted by Walsall, which would have been, like I said, second year scholar, but wanted to stay and do my A-levels. And I had this potential opportunity to go to America in the background, to go to a really, really well-respected university.
And was that a football like scholarship situation, or was that like an academics situation?
So it was both. So I had to have the academics to get into the university, but it was the footballing side paid for everything. So the scholarship paid for my education, housing, etc. So I had that, and then I remember speaking to Chris Hutchins, who was the manager at Walsall at the end of that season. He was like, "Look, I've basically got peanuts for you if you want to stay as a third choice." They had Clayton Ince and Rennie Gilmartin was there, who I still speak to. One of my really good friends, Rennie's at Ipswich now. So at that point, it was a no-brainer really to go to America. It gave me a chance to get my degree, play at a good level. And then, it took me a while to get into the Football League. Had to bounce around non-league for a while. Ended up making my Football League debut at 30. So, it's been a long old slog to get there, yeah.
So there was a period of my life, sadly no longer, where I was pretty into US college sports, and particularly college basketball. And Duke are obviously like the Real Madrid of college hoops. Certainly they were when I was following it. Like, always had the top recruits, the first, second, third draft picks in the NBA every year. You'd expect to see someone from Duke, and them going very deep in the NCAA tournament, March Madness, which is just an incredible tournament. Like, how much, like, what is that college sport environment like? Because I know that the football is taken incredibly seriously as well, but like the college stuff, the college basketball stuff when it comes to Duke and other colleges, like the American football stuff, is just, it's very hard to, I think, to get your head around based on UK universities.
Yeah, it's very hard to describe it for people that don't really have any sort of knowledge of it. Look, Duke basketball, you turn on ESPN over there, and it's pro sports, but then there's college sports, and so the basketball players at my university, they're like royalty. Like, everyone knows who they are. So I was there when Kyrie Irving was there. He was a year younger than me. Mason Plumlee was in my year, had a really, really strong NBA career. So he's someone I still kind of speak to every now and then.
Nice.
But yeah, there was a Duke basketball, an incredible program. Cooper Flagg was the number one pick this year by the Dallas Mavericks, just what came out of Duke. So yeah, it's one of the bigger college programs over there. Coach Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K, is a legend, not just college basketball, but also coached the US national team at the Olympics. So yeah, John Shai is the head coach now, who played under Krzyzewski when I was there. They won the national championship my first year, 2009. Wow. So the celebrations and the parties on campus after that was incredible.
Yeah, they are quite often. For those who don't follow college hoops, I'm being positive, but actually, you watch enough ESPN documentaries, you know that Duke are really the bad guys. You know, if you're not at Duke are the bad guys.
If you don't go to Duke, everyone hates Duke.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, Mason Plumlee, I mean, we're talking about someone who's been in the NBA for like over a decade and played, as I look on Wiki, 860 games. So I think if we could maybe tempt him to do some investing in Harrogate Town, like a lot of other rich Americans across the leagues. Maybe
there is an influx. Yeah, we'll have to have a word, see if we can get a consortium together.
Bit of a stitch up on your wiki page. I don't know how often you go on your own Wikipedia page. Probably not that often. But the picture that you have, and this happens quite a lot with EFL players. I remember Rob Edwards, lovely handsome Rob, had like an absurd picture from way back in the day until he became Premier League manager, and then it got refreshed. Yours is from 2014, so I don't think you were actually as young as it looks like you are, but you do look like a university fresher, like maybe a frat boy from Duke in that picture. So I don't know, maybe we need to get that refreshed.
I was going to say it doesn't need changing, but if we put it out on this, then who knows what I'll end up. So yeah, we do. It does need a new picture. Yeah.
Swindon beat Bromley 2-0. They continue to go very, very well. You've played both Swindon and Bromley this season, so interested to hear your experience against both. Very different playing styles, but both of them hugely effective this season. Bromley's last couple of results haven't been so good, but started really strong. In this game, the damage done in the first half by Swindon strikers, Palmer at the near post, really good movement to kind of fake going defenders blindside and then nipping in front, finishing off a Snowden cross. And then Aaron Drinan, just in the form of his life at the moment, latching onto a sliced clearance from Bromley keeper Grant Smith, and then smashing it fairly close to Grant Smith, who wasn't able to keep it out. That puts him on 8 goals, which is 2 clear of Matthew Dennis. So, talk to me about Swindon and Bromley, 2 really interesting sides.
Yeah, we played them both away. So went to Swindon a couple of weeks ago and look, really, really good side. Drinan obviously playing incredibly well, scored 2 against us. They brought Ollie Palmer on for the last 30 minutes. I think the signing of Ollie Palmer is a great signing, given obviously the injury to Smith. I think he's probably going to be out for the season. So to replace him with someone like Ollie Palmer, do you know what I mean? To have those resources available is a real sort of luxury for a club in League Two. But no, Swindon were excellent. The first 60 minutes was 1-1, and then Drinan scored, and then they kind of put us under pressure a little bit in the second half. And yeah, I think, and again, another side who I would expect to be up there. Now, Bromley, we played them away. Probably our worst performance of the season. We didn't really perform, didn't really stand up to task, and you know what Bromley are about. Against us, it was 2 set pieces, header I saved, and then Kabamba scored the following, and then swum the header from sort of 12 yards out. I mean, 6'6" centre half is, but yeah, Mitch Pinnock's delivery, really, really good quality, and I really like Bromley as a team. I think they're effective. Look, Michael Cheek is an excellent goal scorer. Had a fantastic season last year. Started really well this season. I think he's on 4 goals this year. But no, both 2 good sides. Like I said, we were poor away at Bromley. But again, I'd expect Swindon to be pushing that top 3. Bromley would expect them to be playoffs in and around come the end of the season.
Yeah, Crewe beat Notts 2-1. Their first league win since the 19th of August. A big result for them. I think Notts being reminded, as these leagues will remind you, that you have to play for 95, 96 minutes to get 3 points, because first shot of the game was 8 minutes in. Mickey Demetriou heads home unopposed to put Crewe 1-0 up, and then it probably was about 85 minutes of Notts County pressure and possession and territory. And actually, I thought they played some really nice stuff. I've not been that positive about Notts as an attacking side back end of last season, start of this season. All just looked a little bit slow and a little bit in front of the defence and not asking that many questions. But actually, watching them attack here, really, really good movement off the ball. Lots of players that can handle it in the final third. Some of their new youngsters, Luca on loan, the Spurs kid as well, looks really sharp. Yorpenda from Huddersfield. So I was really positive about what I saw from Notts here, and Cerullo scored a nice goal. But then, a bit of a clumsy foul inside the box in injury time, a penalty scored by your former teammate Josh March, and Crewe have left with all 3.
Yeah, I think you've kind of summed it up well there. Crewe score early on from the set piece, and then Tyrese Hall was excellent for Notts. Full disclosure, I am a Notts County fan, so I do keep an eye out for them. My dad is a season ticket holder there, so whenever we play against them at Meadow Lane, he's sat in the Notts end behind the goal cheering them on. So.
Where was he yesterday? Gillingham or Notts?
No, he was at home. He doesn't do the away games. He was at home watching it the 12:30 kickoff.
Okay.
But yeah, I think, like you said, Tyrese Hall, I opened having Jatta back is a huge plus. Dennis sort of coming back from an injury that's kept him out the last couple of games, scored 6 goals I think already this season. But yeah, I think Jatta has one hits the post, Tyrese Hall cuts in, has one cleared off the line, keeper Booth makes some really good saves for Crewe, and then Marchie gets a penalty and he missed his last one against Barnet. They missed 2 penalties in that game. Then can't remember who the second taker was, but Slicker saved both penalties, and fair play to Marchie stepping up to take the penalty in 95th minute under pressure. But Marchie, really, really good player, did really well for us sort of back end of last season, last 6 months. Had a run in the side and seemed to get that sort of confidence back, and can be a real handful and a really sort of good goal scorer at this level. Did well at Forest Green, obviously got promoted with them, played at Stevenage, and to take that penalty in the last minute, to step up, fair play to him. And Crewe started really well, had a bit of a stutter and picked up a couple of good results last 2 weeks. So again, another really good side who, like I said, we're playing them next up on Monday night.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. You mentioned Tom Booth, and I'd love just to take that opportunity to ask you about League Two keepers and how much you look across the league at others in your cohort, if you like, and kind of how quickly you'll notice who looks like they're doing well. Is it something you'll see on highlights? Do you ever look at numbers, either the sort of top line stuff like clean sheets and save percentage, or even deeper on Opta Analyst now? Got lots of stuff around expected goals on target conceded and goals prevented, and you may or may not know that you're looking pretty good at the top of League Two when it comes to goals prevented right now on Opta. But I noticed earlier when I looked that Tom Booth is number 2, so young keeper who's made the most of his chance.
Yeah, in terms of going deep into stats, it's not really something that I'll do throughout the season. I'm aware of pretty much who's playing at every club and the situation. And when you see goalkeepers before the game or after the game, you'll always have a bit of a chat, kind of what's your situation. Even ones that aren't really playing, you kind of just because I've been around these leagues for a while now, you get to know them, and you'll find there's a big disparity. You've got Joe Murphy at one end currently playing because Luke's had hip surgery. And then you've got Matty Young and a lot of the young players that are on loan at the bottom end in terms of the age range. But I think with goalkeeping in League Two, that kind of sums it up. You can go one way, in where you have the more experienced goalkeeper that's been around, that's probably a little bit more reliable, but probably costs a little bit more money. Or you go down the other route where you take a young Prem loan who are going to be excellent goalkeepers, but bit raw. You might expect sort of the odd mistake, a bit of naivety maybe, but you get some really, really good young keepers that you come up against. So, like, you look at Owen Goodman last year, did excellently for Wimbledon on loan. So yeah, it's, again, that varies by budget and team kind of recruitment. If a manager can save X amount a week on a lone goalkeeper, he can put that into a striker. So just kind of you get sort of all aspects. Glenn Morris I played against yesterday, 41, still going really strong. So for me, I'm 35 in a couple of weeks, so hopefully got a few more years left yet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an interesting one, what you're talking about there, because it's very clear to see the potential benefit of getting the list of keepers that are now England goalkeepers that played in League Two at the start of their career. That's what you can get on loan, because there aren't very many starting spots open for those guys at their clubs, and are unlikely to be until they've had the experience up the league. So you do often see a really nice, quite neat sequence of loans, like James Trafford did it, Rushworth did it, almost neatly, like League Two, League One, Championship, and then these are proper. But from a manager's point of view, your position is, as everyone knows, pretty brutal. And from a manager's point of view, given, not at Harrogate Town, but given how often managers will get sacked when things look fine, but one bad run could see them lose their job. When you talk about maybe needing to ride out some rawness and potential errors due to inexperience from a young keeper, you can't really afford as a manager to give them 6, 7, 8 games worth of experience if they're going to be making mistakes or letting in shots that they shouldn't. Ultimately, you're gonna lose your job. It's a pretty brutal scenario that you're all in.
It is, and that's the position that we play. It's a mentally challenging position, and like you said, for managers and priorities. And I think a lot of it depends on style of play, how the management want to play, because I think if you looked at it in a really general way, the younger academy boys are probably more comfortable with the feet than kind of the older boys at the top end of the spectrum. Now, for me, I do like to get involved with the play. I do like to build, so I can kind of try and class myself as a bit of a hybrid between old breed and new breed. But if you've got a team that want to build relentlessly and they want to play that style of football, then you need to recruit a keeper that can do that. And these boys, when the young boys come on loan, or I see them in training, and you kind of look at them and go, okay, they've got a bit and technically are excellent goalkeepers. But yeah, if a manager's going to get time, you can afford to run with that. But yeah, like you said, you're not always afforded that time.
Yeah. 4-1 was the final score at Chesterfield. They were hosting Newport. Chesterfield obviously heavily favoured to win this game, and scored two nice goals in the first half. I thought the movement from Grigg was just pure Will Grigg, to gain a bit of space inside the box and head home brilliantly. And I've always had a bit of a thing, James, about It's very obvious when you have a tall striker like an Andrews, for example, that played against you yesterday, had a few headed opportunities. It's very obvious that those guys are an aerial threat. What I really appreciate are shorter strikers who still score a lot of headed goals, and it's not because they can climb above the centre back. It's because their movement allows them to get space inside the box. I always think Watkins, when he was at Championship level, was really good at that, and an underrated part of his game. And watching Griggs' goal last night, you are just reminded of the nous that he has with that movement, and then the angle of the header and the placement into the far corner. It's genuinely beautiful stuff. You know that it's beautiful stuff.
No, it is, and like I said, you play against Andrews or you play against Smith or Palmer, and what you'll find is a lot of them will just, when the balls are kind of 40, 50 yards out, they drift to the back post, and as a wide player, you know that you put it in an area and they'll get their head on it. Whereas, like you said, someone like Will Grigg, I was in the youth team with Will at Walsall, so someone like Will who can find that little pocket of space, get between two defenders, and was an excellent header yesterday, to be fair. And yeah, he's still scoring goals. He's a bit of an EFL sort of legend for the Northern Ireland stint. But no, really good goal. And Chelsea are a good side. They beat us earlier in the season. The second goal from Dixon, I think he runs the length of the pitch and cuts inside. Really, really nice finish. And then Ronan Darcy gets put through and little dink finish, and he scored that goal against us that kind of went semi-viral, where he comes inside onto his left foot, shots back onto his right, sends a couple of defenders flying, and then just rolls it into the bottom corner. Yeah. I'm just so glad that I didn't go for the first one, because if I go as well as the two defenders, if I go flying across that way and he rolls it into an empty net, then it really is going viral. But no, Chelsea are a really good side. Again, another one you'd expect pre-season sort of favourites, hotly tipped, and you'd expect them to be up there.
Yeah, I mean, Spellman made it 2-1 with a deflected shot for Newport, and you're thinking, could this be a nervy finish for Chesterfield? Then they score 2, and it's Darcy who came off the bench, and it's Markanday who came off the bench. Tom Naylor came off the bench. Berry was an unused sub. Like, that is the squad that they have, and it is a real luxury for Paul Cook. We had a 4-2 at Fleetwood, beating Cole U. Tight one first half. Colchester playing pretty well, actually, and 2-1 up. Lisby for them, and Payne from the penalty spot. It was Ennis for Fleetwood on loan from Manchester United. And then second half, it looked like Fleetwood sort of, I don't know whether they had the wind. Is that the sort of thing that affects games more than people realise? The wind at places like Fleetwood and Barrow, James? Because sometimes you see like such a game of two halves where one team's had like all the shots in the first half and then the other team's had all the shots in the second half. And I think back to Sunday League and go like, yeah, when you've got strong wind behind you, it really does make a big difference.
Yeah, I think Sunday League you get the slope as well, don't you? We'll have the slope for no, it does play. Wind for me is the worst conditions to play in as a goalkeeper. Just wreaks havoc with decision making for crosses, balls over the top, and in one half the decision making is totally different. So your starting position is different because of the how the ball's going to travel through the wind. And if you're a team and your style is to go direct and you're trying to hit a ball into gale force winds, then it's obviously going to impact that. If you're playing into a wind and you've got an expectant fan base and you're playing away from home and the crowd's getting up, then it does become difficult. But the wind, it does have more of an impact than people do think. Probably more at League Two level because, again, the players aren't as technically gifted as they are at the top end of the pyramid. So, yeah, it can wreak havoc, particularly at Barrow and Fleetwood and places like that up there. It can get involved. Yeah.
I don't even know if it was windy, but I just assumed that it was. And even if it wasn't, we got some good insight. That's the main thing. Some really nice finishes from the left foot of Jordan Davis, who's going well at Fleetwood. Obviously, was kind of at Wrexham at the start of their journey, and then had some problems with injury, and obviously kind of looking for a new home. It feels like he's found that at Fleetwood, and you can see from his finishes the quality that he has in his left peg. Just some quite ropey Colchester defending, which is just not something that I would expect from a Danny Cowley side, and particularly one that last season I think had the second most clean sheets in League Two. I guess it must be one of those, more generally, James, when you look to improve on a season before because you want to jump to that next level. Of course, part of that can be recruitment and player trading and all that sort of stuff, but it could sometimes be like, look, we're a good defensive side last season, but we probably didn't score enough goals or were a consistent enough threat going forward, let's say, to really make the most of our defensive record. I imagine that's what Colchester would have looked at, and then you try and get better on the attacking end. But sometimes you can upset the balance a bit and lose the defensive solidity, and maybe you don't get the same benefit on the other end. Is that the sort of thing that you guys have ever experienced at Harrogate? Because you've had a few, you've got that core that's always been there, but you've had a few different iterations at League Two level to try build new teams and play a different way.
Yeah, it can be difficult to, like you said, Colchester excellent defensively last year, and it depends if you're switching the style of play as well. If your philosophy or kind of your build in pre-season is like, right, okay, we're gonna look to improve on what didn't go so well last year. You look at Notts County, for example, scored 90 goals, concede 81 goals. Big obvious kind of flaw a couple of years ago was the defence. So they shore the defence up and become a better team as a result of that. I do think there are instances where teams could be not worse, but just kind of you try and stop a leak in one area and then it pops back out somewhere else. And yeah, maybe Colchester are seeing that at the minute. They're probably the one team you'd look at and go, their league position's probably a bit false where they are now compared to where I'd see them sort of come the end of the season. And yeah, not too clued up on the recruitment side of things with Colchester, but they've got excellent managers. I know the goalkeeper coach there, Yilmaz. I know a couple of the boys there played with him at Bristol Rovers. So yeah, they've got a strong squad. So I wouldn't expect them to be at that sort of end of the table come the end of the season. Yeah,
I mean, I definitely take your point about false position. I did not expect them to be down in 20th where they are now, only one win in 10, but it's Colchester. They draw a lot of games because generally they are quite low margin, and they've got 5 draws so far. So at this stage of the season, those are the teams where I want to sort of dig a bit deeper into those draws and see, how many of those were more likely to turn into wins and how many were more likely to maybe be defeats. Have they snatched points, or are they dropping 2 points? And that kind of gives you an idea, or a slightly better idea, I think, of the true level of the team. But there's, as we said, there's been a real spread of points. A lot of teams have started well in League Two, and I think we've got 3 at the bottom: Newport, Shrewsbury, and Cheltenham, who are on 5 points, 5 points, and 4 points. They are not cut adrift at this stage. No one is, but very visibly in the league table, they're the bottom 3, and they look like their starts to the season have been slower. But I do think you can't really afford to start too slowly, because it feels like there's loads of contenders this year. It's such an exciting league. 2 of them, I would suggest, went head to head at the Mem on Saturday. Bristol Rovers beat Salford 2-1. You've played Rovers earlier this season. You beat them 1-0. They've sort of bounced back quite well after a slow start to the season. You also, of course, played for Bristol Rovers and had a really, really interesting spell there, including promotion from League Two. They beat Salford, and it was quite a lively one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. Bristol Rovers have obviously gone into that on a really, really good run of form. So have Salford. We played them first game of the season. First time I went back to the Mem, got a really good reception from the fans, which was really, really nice. Again, was part of that team that was 18th on New Year's Day and went on to win 7-0 against Scunthorpe on the last day of the season to finish third. But yeah, the way the gas are going now, to come back from a goal down, get to Alfie Kilgore with a header, and then Ellis Harrison obviously scores, and then Coven scored 3-3, I think it is now for him. So seems like Darrell Clark and Rovers are starting to build something there. I think the biggest thing that Rovers did this summer was bring Darrell Clark back. I think it was a club after the relegation that needed the place needed a lift. And I think bringing back a double promotion winning manager will do that. And look, special mention to Luke Southwood as well. Penalty in the 96th minute. Garbett steps up and Southwood makes a save and then gets the rebound away. And yeah, as a goalkeeper, it probably doesn't get much better than that. I had one at Fleetwood last year, 91st minute, making a sort of a late penalty save that was to preserve a draw then, and it's obviously to win. But as a goalkeeper, like I said, it doesn't get much better than saving a pen last minute. So fair play to him.
And the save was good, but the bravery to dive at the feet of an attacker that was rushing in, I mean, that is, you guys are built different, I think it's fair to say. Basically throwing his head at it, really, really impressive. And yeah, Salford clearly a very strong team, and I think on balance of play will be pretty gutted. They didn't leave with a point here. Shrews lost 2-1 at home to MK. First goal was a long throw, flicked on by Gilby, who, although he's tall, is not necessarily the guy that you expect to be, winning too many flick-ons inside your box when you've got some quite big centre-backs. Scott Hogan stealing in at the back post to tap in. And then Will Collar sort of mopped up a rebounded shot to put them 2-0 up. Nice Chucksanike hit to make it 2-1. But all not very well at Shrews at the moment. Lots of chance of we want Roland out. That's the chairman. Clearly, it's an owner who has been looking to sell the club or at least receive investment and try and get some freshness on that front. But nothing going at the moment on that. And then on the pitch, it's been really tough, stretching out to 18 months now, probably longer. Michael Appleton, just the 2 wins in 19 league games across the 2 seasons since joining last season. And yeah, they're part of a bottom 3 with Newport and Cheltenham, who we've both mentioned already. And I guess what I'd be really interested to chuck at you, James, is like Harrogate, as mentioned, you finish 13th, between 13th and 19th every season, right? So I'm not going to ask you the specifics about the teams who are down there at the moment, and so much can still change. But from your experience as a League Two player the last 4 or 5 years, what do you think is the difference between being bottom half but safe and relegation candidates?
From my experience, it would be home form. I think teams at the bottom half, so we were hovering above the relegation zone sort of around Christmas time last year, and then going into the back end of last season we had Accrington, Carlisle, Gillingham, Tranmere. We had all these teams to play at home, so we knew we still had those games, and we knew it was important to pick up points at home, and that's what we did, and we ground out some really, really tough results against those teams sort of in and around us. So I think home form's key. Especially for, like I said, when you're away from home in this league, when you're a smaller club like us, you're often outnumbered from a fan perspective and an atmosphere perspective. So when teams are coming to play us at our place, it's so important to be resolute and hard to beat at home. But you've seen it with, like I said, with those at Bristol Rovers. Donny did it a couple of years ago. Teams that are sort of around the bottom, you pick up 4 or 5 wins in this league, and all of a sudden you go from 24th and you can be up at mid-table, like even touching playoffs. Like it's a mad league, but that's why we love it, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, I love it so much. I tend to, don't tell the others, but I tend to watch the League Two highlights first on a weekend. Genuinely, like we've obviously got 3 leagues. I know I'm going to watch them all, go through them all, and start putting notes together for the pod. For some reason, I just always want to watch League Two first, because I just, the results are generally more surprising in some ways. Loads of goals being scored, great variety in playing styles as well. Always new players that have either maybe come from non-league or they've just burst in. It's just so entertaining, and I love it so much. Barrow have picked up some big wins recently, just when they needed it. They won at Crewe 2-1. Again, 2 sides you've played this season, so interested in how they shaped up. I think first half performance here really from Barrow kind of won them this game. Crawley looked like they were a bit slow out the blocks, and Barrow made the most of that. And the first goal was Booty chip ball over the top to Fletcher, who found Gordon, and then Gordon doing a great job to get the ball down the right side, burst past his man, got it to Earing, who found Fletcher for 2-0. So notable for me there, names like Earing and Fletcher and Booty involved in big moments for Barrow, because the departure of their midfield 3 from last season in Dean Campbell and Spence and Gotts just felt like removing the heart of what was a good side. And these are the guys that needed to step up in their absence, and on this on this occasion they absolutely did that.
Yeah, I think Barrow, they went through a bit of a tough spell, and then after the Blackpool game and Andy Wing's outburst, they've won 2-2, and Barrow are always a tough side to play, particularly at Barrow. It's a very tough place to go. We're going there on a Tuesday night in February, which is going to be a real sort of a tough game for us. But yeah, to replace, like you said, Campbell, Spence and Gotts, three excellent players at this level, to rebuild a full midfield for, again, a team like Barrow, who are generally one of the smaller teams in the league, is a huge task. And yeah, I always fancy Barrow to be fine. Like, you never think Barrow are going to be in any trouble. And even in this, Crawley have a chance, 96th minute, Lofty has a chance at the back post that he just misses. And yeah, it's really, really good win for Barrow on the road. Obviously, long away trip and pleasing journey home for Andy Wing, I'm sure.
Yeah, interesting one from a goalkeeper perspective. I think Stanley has really made the gloves his own, and obviously Paul Farman was such a stalwart for them and a really good performer as well. I think it must be interesting from a club point of view. When do you decide that the next guy up, it's time for him? I wonder if you've had any instances in your career where you've been on either end of that. But you have to say Stanley, he looks the part. He's definitely got a bit about him. Kind of really celebrated Loft's miss right in his face, and a local lad as well, from a famous footballing family with his sister Georgia, obviously a two-time Euros winner.
Yeah, having played with Lofty, I don't think that was too smart on Will's part to get in his face at the end. But yeah, I know Farms really well, played against him for years, and he's a goalkeeper who I kind of probably would speak to on occasions. And yeah, they've obviously made the decision. They made it back end of last season to play Stanley, and then kept with Stanley this year. Farms has gone to Swansea as a 3. So yeah, I think for in terms of when you make that change, it's very kind of situation specific. I had it at Bristol Rovers, my second season in League One. They bought Ellery Balcom in on loan from Brentford. He came in, played a few games. I ended up getting back in and playing the rest of that season. And then the season that I left Bristol Rovers, we signed Matt Cox on loan from Brentford, again another highly rated young goalkeeper who's been with the England setup. And I was kind of forced out for Coxie and ended up leaving Bristol Rovers a few months later. But yeah, it could be due to form, like lack of form, teams not winning, manager wants to change something, seeing something in training. There's a whole plethora. Again, with these clubs, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I think one thing fans aren't privy to is all the conversations that go on at the training ground and kind of stuff that goes on in people's personal lives that impact stuff. So it's always so hard to look from the outside as to kind of the nuances as to why someone's not playing or what's gone on there. And it may be more than just a footballing decision. But yeah, in terms of Stanley getting the gloves, getting a chance to obviously make the shirt his own, he has done really well from what I've seen when we played against him, and also from highlights and stuff, and seems to be spoken about as one of the better goalkeepers in the league.
Training ground dynamic is really interesting to me, James. As you've brought it up, it's just like you are the goalkeeping unit. You train within yourselves for large periods. There's obvious competitive elements to it, but also has to be a lot of support within that. And you often hear when there's a really tight unit where everyone gets on really well, that can be very, very positive. But of course, you need competition as well, and you would expect the second choice keeper to want the gloves and the third choice keeper to want to become the second choice. It's a really interesting dynamic there, and basically must mean obviously training's intense for every player, and there's no point sacking it off or being off it. But it strikes me that even more intense maybe from the goalkeeper situation for those reasons.
Yeah, it's unless you've been in it, you can't really understand like the dynamics and how it all fits together. I think the main thing that you'd want as a goalkeeper from the management at the start of the season is kind of clarity. So a clarity of roles and if you are a 1 or a 2 and how that looks throughout the season. But in terms of, I've been a number 2, I've been a number 1, you always want to train at the required levels to push the number 1, to support the number 1, but also, yeah, you want to play. Like there's no bones about it. Like both goalkeepers, if there's a 1, the 2, even a 3, will want to play. So it's down to obviously management and goalkeeper coach to manage that dynamic. But then it is difficult because you spend so much time as a unit. You often get sent over to the other side of the training ground to go and do your sessions before you get brought in with the team. So you spend so much time together. So you do create a bond. But look, everyone wants to play. Everyone wants to wear the shirt. So if you're a 1, it's up to you to perform on a Saturday to keep the shirt, and if you're a 2, it's to push the 1, and then when you get the opportunity to take that. So like I said, I've been in both scenarios. It's yeah, there's no kind of easy sort of way to dress it all up. And yeah, it's football. It's a ruthless business. You've got God knows how many kids that would want to be even a 3 or a 4 or a 5 at a club, never mind a 1 or a 2. So,
of course.
So yeah, it's yeah.
You basically, I know keepers, the cliche is always that you guys are all a bit nuts, but like, you actually, thinking about it, you guys have to be good blokes basically because of that small unit. Like, I can imagine that people aren't going to put up very long with a keeper that's just disruptive or not playing, not training well in terms of being supportive of the team in general, as only in it for themselves. Whether it's probably slightly more acceptable if they're number one because they're the kind of big cheese, but like, you really need to make sure that in terms of like soft skills and how you handle working as part of that unit, that you're doing the right things, as well as the sporting side, the technical side, making sure you don't miss a beat.
Well, the thing is, if you're a bad teammate, or you're sulking, or you're not training at the required standards, like other managers will find that out. Like, managers talk in football, it's such a close knit community. Like, if I wasn't a good teammate and I'm looking to leave Harrogate or something, for hypothetically, and there's another manager, their first call is going to be to Simon Weaver. What's he like? What's he like as a lad? That's the first question you always get. The amount of people in football that will text me saying, "Oh, so and so, what do you think of him? What's he like as a lad?" First thing they'll ask me. Like, so if it's a club I've played for or someone, I know I'm obviously not going to name names, but people will text and say, "We're looking to bring this guy in. What's he like around the training ground? Does he get on with the boys?" Like, that's the first thing they'll ask. They'll know all the football inside, but so that plays a massive part. So if you get a reputation for not being a good bloke or not doing things right, then that'll stay with you. And then if that happens with 1-2 managers, then it becomes harder and harder to get contracts down the line. But look, it's a tough dynamic for anyone in football who's injured, living away from home, family issues, not playing. Do you know what I mean? These are the sides of football that people don't see. Like, a bloke could be having a shocker like a couple of Saturdays in a row, and you see abuse that players get online, and you see kind of what's said about players, and you think, when I've seen it about players and I actually know what's going on in like either personal lives or background and stuff, it's so hard. So it's the best job in the world, but can be the worst industry to work in at times.
Yeah, for sure. Oldham won, Barnet won. We billed this one as the Vanarama Super Cup. Very much not an original, not the top 20 expression. The credit goes to Kieran from NTT20 squad, but enjoyed that one. The two teams that came up both started pretty well, or at least the last few weeks have started to come on really strong. And it was a interesting game, an early goal for Barnet from the spot. Shelton, who played for Oldham and then joined Barnet, having had his contract terminated by Oldham, then won promotion with Barnet, with Oldham coming up with them, and scored a goal. Mega celebration in front of the Oldham fans. So there's obviously a bit of history there. He got booked, I assume, for that celebration, for kind of inciting angry fans, and then came off injured quite quickly after that, or maybe was just considered that a second yellow might have been on the cards. I'm not sure, but quite interesting. And then Oldham coming on very strong in the second half. Michael Mellon scoring from the spot. A couple of big opportunities they had to win the game, not taken, which, honestly, like, every time Oldham haven't won this season, it is pretty simple when you watch like how many massive chances they've missed. Like, their points tally could be so much better than the 14 that they're on from 10 games. And Kane Drummond in this instance, I think it was, sprinted clear with a man square. It's probably I would say it's the thing that makes me angriest in football, outside of like a tackle that's clearly trying to injure someone, is when the attacker doesn't square it for a tap in for his teammate. And even if they score, I don't like it. But when they don't score, like, for me, that is like the biggest crime as an attacking player that you can make, is to try and go for glory. And it must be mad for goalkeepers as well, because obviously you can see from halfway he's sprinting clear. You know the bloke's there. You've got to work out how to make it so that. Yeah, I mean, what do you do in that situation as a keeper to kind of make them make the wrong decision, basically?
Yeah, they are really difficult situations. I think as a goalkeeper, you always have to look, I've got to make him beat me. So I've not got to commit. I've got to try and stand as long as I can. I've got to delay as long as I can, in the hope that one of my defenders is going to sprint back and make a block or make a tackle, or he goes for the shot and tries to, like you said, doesn't square it. But look, in those scenarios, you have to protect the goal. a goalkeeper's not going to gamble on a cutback or a ball back across the goal. If he does square it, then you hold your hands up, and there's obviously probably 7, 8, 9, 10 reasons why they're in that position. But yeah, I think, to quote George, you were quite bullish on Barnet to do well this season, and I think both teams started slower and then have picked up. I was on the I'm on the goalkeeping A license at the minute, and
nice.
Oldham goalkeeper coach Scott Davis is on it. So I was having a good chat with him. He was on my B license as well, and just sort of, we were on it last week and just saying, oh, how's the season going, that sort of chat. And he was saying there's so many games that they could have come out on the right side of it, and that they've been playing really well. And for him, he was saying Matty Hudson in goal's been really good for them. For Oldham, obviously Barnet have gone with Slicker from Ipswich, who I know from Rennie Gilmartin there that he's really highly rated young keeper. So I think, like I said, Vanarama Super Cup 1-1. I think, fair result. But like I said, if Oldham, again, haven't seen the highlights, but Oldham obviously by the sounds of it have had the better of the play.
Yeah, and Tranmere 0, Cambridge United 0 was the most match that surely has ever happened. And like, you definitely could have seen that coming, because both sides are strong defensively. Is probably the euphemism, and also the truth. They are pretty strong defensively. And before we let you go, James,
I think just with that, I just got to shout out Joe Murphy. I know I spoke about him earlier, but at 44 years old, I spoke to Joe a few times over the years, and for him to still be flying around the goal, I saw on the highlights he's made a flying save from a header where he's punched it away, and for his body and his mind to have the desire to be able to do that at his age, then fair play to him.
Well, that's 10 years on from where you are now at 34. What are your plans for the next few years and beyond?
So I think for me, because I was so late in making my Football League debut, you're trying to make up for lost time, and look, there's nothing like playing the game. I want to play as long as I can. So if I can play into my 40s, then great, would love that. And then on the other side of the coin, I've got my own goalkeeping academy in Nottingham. So I work with about 80 young goalkeepers a week. I'm doing my goalkeeping A license at the minute, and then on the media side of things, been doing a lot of analysis work on podcasts, been doing some TV stuff. So yeah, just trying to get out there, and like I said, love talking about football and kind of offering my opinion to those that will listen. So like I said, I'm very appreciative of you having me on the pod. So yeah, I don't know. I think let's just focus on playing for the next few years, do a few things on the side, and then see where it takes me.
Well, and we'll finish off with just a bit extra on Harrogate Town. They're not a club, and I don't mean this in a negative way, this is purely factual. They don't have a huge fan base in the EFL terms, and what that means practically for us is we don't hear from Harrogate fans as much as we hear from fans of other clubs, right? And so you do sometimes want to understand a bit more about clubs from fans or people within those clubs, and try and get an understanding of what the club's about, because each club is unique in its own way. And I think with Harrogate, it's like everyone knows that Simon is the chairman's son and has been there for an unbelievably long time. And I think that's kind of like a given. Everyone knows that. And I'm not sure there's much scratching of the surface beneath that to actually understand what makes the club tick, what makes Simon tick, what makes the club successful. Because in his time as manager and in the last 10, 15 years, they have gone from being like basically a regional non-league club to 5 seasons in League Two and a really interesting team for the level. So is it that consistency, longevity? Feels like quite a loyal club as well, not just because of the manager, but from the playing staff point of view, retaining so many players that came up and have stayed to kind of set standards, I guess. Yeah,
I think, like you said, beyond there's not much that's been delved into beyond obviously the gaffer being the chairman's son, but the club went full time in 2017 in the Conference North, same year that Salford did, and we both got promoted that year. Then we lost out in the playoffs first year in the National League. We got beat by Fylde, and then we won the playoffs the year after COVID season. We beat Notts County at Wembley, and so 2 promotions in 3 years to get into the Football League with pretty much the same group of lads was an incredible achievement. And going back to what you said about not hearing from fans, like when I first went there, I remember playing against like Alfreton in front of 500 people. And then now we're regularly getting attendances of like 3,000 plus, which is a huge kind of testament to the people involved at the football club, because the club's obviously grown at a accelerated rate on the pitch, but that also means that off the pitch you have to match that. So every year when we got promoted or we're in the Football League, first of all, the pitch had to be ripped up because we had an artificial surface.
Right.
And then a new stand has to be built, and then you have to get a training ground, then you have to get the academy. So all this stuff that's gone on behind the scenes, and loyalty is very sort of prevalent at the football club. The manager's obviously been there a long time. He's kept the same sort of staff that have been there the whole time, same assistant, same goalkeeper coach, same physio, and just added sort of one or two people to it. So we often turn up at these games and you see clubs with sort of 15 to 20 members of staff, and there's sort of 5, 6, 7 staff there. And then the core group of players that have been there: Warren Burrell, Josh Falkingham, George Thompson, myself, Jack Muldoon, been there for 8 years. I spent a couple of years away. I went to Bristol Rovers, had a brief spell at Forest Green on loan, and then ended up coming back to Harrogate, getting on for 2 years ago now. And look, when the opportunity came to go back there, it was one I jumped at. Like, it is probably the most unique football club in the pyramid. But it's a club that, like you said, it's our 6th season in the Football League now, and it's getting on for a club that, you don't want to say an established Football League club, but we hold our own in the Football League every year. And it's what the manager's done really well is keeping that core group together whilst adding little components to it. So adding players around it, and then, like with any football club, some players will come in, it doesn't really work out for them, they move on, another player comes in, and then those ones that work kind of stay in the core, and it builds out and builds out and builds out. But yeah, we know what our expectations are. Our expectations are to improve year in, year out, to be better than we were the year before. And there's always that team that goes on a run and does something special. You look at Crawley when they did it, you look at Morecambe when they did it, sort of similar sort of size clubs in terms of like your fan base, in terms of like your history and that. So yeah, why not? There's always one club that goes on a bit of a run. League Two is an incredibly difficult league. You look at the teams at the top end that are really, really big clubs, and you've always got difficult games. But yeah, for us, we're in a good spot, and yeah, just quietly want to go about our business. But yeah, it's a club that if people haven't sort of taken note or come to a game, or I'd say, yeah, we're a fun watch, and we're a good side to watch play.
Yeah, we need to get up there for sure. Well, what's interesting, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, is that your next game in the league is at home to Crewe, and it's Monday Night Football on next Monday, the 6th of October. So we won't be talking about Harrogate on the pod next week, but we will then be watching you play live. Make sure the Sky Graphics team have the number 1 goals prevented in League Two this season when they show your close up. We'll make sure we get that to them. I think quite a lot of them listen to the pod, to be fair. But yeah, I feel like I should say, like, don't let us down, James. You're going to have the whole pod rooting for you now, so you need to make sure you're at it.
You did text me in the week saying, the pod, if Harrogate could go and end the Gills unbeaten run. So you put a bit of pressure on me for yesterday. So let's see if we can stand up 2 for 2.
Yeah, you guys absolutely stepped up. A big win at Gillingham, big performance on the pod today. Really great to pick your brains on so many different aspects of on-pitch stuff and off-pitch stuff as well. So thanks so much for coming on, and wish you all the best.
Thanks. I think George should take some more trips to Ryder Cup, or take some more holidays now, so we can get some more of these on.
Yeah, I think George is taking quite enough trips, actually, from my point of view, from a business partner point of view.
Maybe it's your turn for a holiday then.
Yeah, that's it. Spot on. Cheers, James. Go well.
No problem. Thanks for having me.